Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm Michelle. I'm so glad you're here. And I wanted to read a beautiful review on Apple that says, I love listening to this podcast when I'm feeling untethered as a mom. It validates my feelings and recenters me always. I love how the approach spans from toddlers to teens, and there are so many personal examples and stories that really help illustrate the concepts. So thankful for Michelle's work. Thank you. Thank you so much. I very, very much appreciate it. I would love to hear from more of you, what you think of the podcast, how it resonates with you, and how it's been helpful. I haven't talked a lot about rewards in a while, and so I wanted to talk about rewards today because rewards become this, I guess, the sneaky little piece of parenting that sometimes gets stuck in our pedagogy, and we might see it as beneficial, right? Because it's rewarding. We are doing something positive in our minds. Like we're giving our child something. We are being positive. We're giving them a positive reinforcement. And I always thought this too. I really thought, oh, punishments aren't that great. They don't work for us. They don't feel good, but rewards do. Rewards feel really good. And I remember way back when I created this huge elaborate, star chart. I went to the store and bought the wooden one with all the little stars, magnetic stars you could put up. And I had all kinds of little things that I wanted Esme to do, like be kind to her sister, brush her teeth, put her clothes in the dirty clothes hamper. And so I had a bunch of things, and I was like, oh, I'm going to load this thing up with things that I want Esme to do, and I'm going to give her stars. And then when she gets enough stars, I'm going to give her a prize from this prize box that I had in the garage. And so it was really successful at first. Esme was really into it. She was like super excited about pleasing me. She was super excited about getting the stars, and she loved getting the prizes. And for a minute there, I was like, oh, this is it. We found it. I'm nailing parenting. It was all about rewards. All this kid needs is positive reinforcement, and we're off to the races. Well, after a while, this sweet girl was not interested in the rewards anymore. She was not interested in the prizes, and she certainly wasn't interested in me manipulating her. And really, that ended up being what it was, right? It really is a manipulation. It's like, I'm only going to give you the things, the praise, the stars, the prizes, if you do as I ask you to do. And so that becomes this place where we're still controlling them, right? We're still manipulating them. We're still making them do what we want to do by giving them some sort of external motivator. And that external motivator is the prize or the reward. But what we really want to do more than anything is to have the child be internally motivated, intrinsic motivation. We want them to choose to brush the teeth, to be kind to the sister, to follow our instructions because they internally want to. Now, that's a big departure from conventional parenting. Conventional parenting really believes in, I just need to get the behavior. I don't care how I get it. I don't care if it's through manipulation. I don't care if it's pushing against the grain of the child. I don't care if it's control. All I care about is this idea that I need to get the behavior that I want. And I'll do anything I can to get that behavior. But what connected parenting really says is that I want the child to choose the right behavior. I want them to choose to be kind because they believe that it's the kind thing to do, because they actually believe in being kind. Now, people will argue, well, what if they don't? Well, what if they don't? If they don't choose to be kind always, that's pretty normal. And then we can look to this idea that that child who's not being kind or is unable to follow our instructions, be cooperative, is either having a hard time or going through something. And we can remedy it through connection. And our kids will always have moments where they do the wrong thing, where they're unkind or they can't follow our directions. And that's normal. And we can't look for complete and utter compliance. That's just never going to happen. And nor should it. And if it does, if we have complete and utter compliance, we should be really worried about that, because any child that just follows someone's lead without questioning it, without pushing back, without having their own free will and their own agency and their own autonomy, then we worry, will that child have their own agency and autonomy and free will as they grow up? Or will they just blindly comply with whomever is leading them? And is that what we want to do? Is that who we want to produce? Is that who we want to? Do we want to, some kids are born or have a temperament that is more cooperative. And do we want to push that cooperative temperament so that they cooperate out with other folks who may not have their best interest in mind? Will they become followers in their school groups because they have learned that compliance is how you should be in a relationship? So really, connective parenting says rewards are not okay, because rewards really speak to this idea of manipulation. Now, it could be considered quote unquote positive manipulation, I suppose. But also, what rewards do is that if you don't receive the reward, so what Esme was happening with her is she wasn't able to get the reward all the time, right? Because her behavior was still wonky. At first, it wasn't. At first, it was like complete cooperation. And back in those days, I was like, yes, that's what I want. I really want complete cooperation. I don't care how I get it. But she wasn't able to do that because the kid's strong-willed and sensitive. And I think, she's shame adverse, which I believe many kids are, right? I think many people are, right? We don't do well with shame. Like when something happens and we feel shameful or we feel guilty, it eats at us. And so for her, it would eat at her and then she would lash out. Whereas some people, it would eat at them and they would go withdrawal. So she would lash out when she couldn't do the right thing because she had so much free will and autonomy in her own, mind, and didn't want to be manipulated, but couldn't put it all in words. So she would just lash out. Then she would feel shame around it. And then it would put her in that loop. So really, when she couldn't get the reward, she felt punished, right? And so if you feel punished when you don't get the reward, then is the reward just a punishment? And are rewards detrimental for your relationship, right? Do they eat away at your connection? Because the child ultimately, subconsciously, they might not be able to articulate it or even notice it. I think we may not even notice it unless it's pointed out to us that we're manipulating the kid, right? We're placing something inside of their behavior or inside of our relationship that says, like, if you don't do this, you're not going to get the thing that you really love. You're not going to get the iPad. You're not going to get the treat. You're not going to get the extra playtime. You're not going to get the thing or even praise. You're not going to get the thing that you're craving unless you do what I say. And now I'm not saying just let your kids run amok and they don't have to do anything that you say. Of course, we want cooperation, but how do we get there? And how is it derived? And what do we want that to look like? Do we want it to look manipulative and feel manipulative, or would we rather it look and feel organic and authentic? And we get cooperation through connection. So beefing up your connection with your child will increase your cooperation, and therefore you don't have to use the rewards. And I think the rewards really eat away at the connection. And so they might make the pushback even greater when you take the rewards away or when you have the next experience with your child, depending on the temperament of your kid, right? And when you take the rewards away, what they've seen and what studies show is that so goes the behavior. The good, quote unquote, behavior or the compliant, quote unquote, behavior disappears when the reward disappears. And now, has the child learned to authentically follow our lead, or have they just learned to get the reward? Additionally, where are we placing the importance of things? Are we placing the importance of being kind to your brother or sister? Or are we placing the importance on the iPad that you're going to get afterwards or the extra playtime that you're going to get afterwards? So are we making the playtime, the iPad, the whatever it is, the most important thing, as opposed to making the most important thing is to be kind to your brother and sister. And I think that's what happens is the reward becomes the coveted object and the focus of the interaction as opposed to the actual behavior. When we use connection and authentic cooperation, and we don't rely on punishments and rewards, we get an internal mechanism that works better. And I talk about this a lot. And I think it just makes really good common sense that we dive deeply into our own psyche and our own thoughts and feelings and emotions and guilt and shame and cooperation and all those things. We go internal when we don't have that external motivator like a reward. Now, people will say, well, my kid won't cooperate. And I have to say, like, then you have to work on connection. All the aspects of connection. What are the aspects of connection? I say it all the time. Empathy, setting limits with empathy, play, special time, and taking care of yourself. We call it listening partnerships. It can be all kinds of things, but listening partnerships is one of the biggest things. And inside of Peace and Parenting, we teach those. And those become kind of the framework for how to be in a connected relationship with your kids. And so those ideas are what keep us away from rewards and dive us deeper into connection. Now, if you're really looking to understand what those ideas are, you can either join our community or the first 20 episodes of Peace and Parenting really are the ideas of connection. And please don't judge me, but the audio is really bad because that was nearly, I think, 2019. But still, that was a long time ago. And our audio was really bad. And my partner and I at the time who was doing it with me, we were doing it in our closet. And I was doing it in my closet. She was doing it in her closet to get away from our kids. And it was during COVID. And so it's not good, but the content is really good. And so if you're looking to dive into those ideas, the real basic ideas of connected parenting, I would start at the beginning of this series, of this podcast, way back when, episode 1. And I think that will give you really good ideas about what connection truly is and how to stay away from rewards, because rewards can be tricky. They really can. And, if you want to even dive deeper into this idea of rewards, there's Dr. Deci, he was a psychologist in the 50s, and he did a lot of research on rewards. And so did Alfie Cohen, who uses some of Dr. Deci's research. Alfie Cohen has a great book called Punished by Rewards, and it's lovely. And he also wrote a book called Unconditional Parenting that's lovely. And I think just rewards, they don't do us any favors. They really don't. And you can even link rewards to, overpraising, that overpraising just kind of does the same thing. If we keep telling our child, oh, good job, you're amazing, you did great. And then when they don't hear it, they feel punished. And we don't mean to, but that can happen. So celebrating with our kids and being excited with them, as opposed to telling them how they're doing or judging their behavior, is something that you can stay away from too. All right. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast. Please listen to the beginning episodes if you have questions about the ideas of connection, or reach out to us and join one of our programs. Okay. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time.